Welcome to Purpose Driven Church for Unificationists. Today we are doing day 16, which is continuing the foundation for a healthy church. We're currently looking at how having a clear purpose has many advantages, which obviously is the purpose of the book, Purpose Driven Church. So we're looking now at a clear purpose reduces frustration. He's saying that a clear purpose not only defines what we do, it defines what we do not do. And you wouldn't think that this would be such a big issue, but the reality is, also from my experience in the last 3 years as being a pastor here, is that there's no shortage of people who have an idea of what we or what the church should be doing. He says, as a pastor, I've learned that everybody has their own agenda for the church. To rephrase the first spiritual law, God loves me, and everybody else has a wonderful plan for my life. People are always saying the church ought to do this or the church ought to do that. Many of these suggestions are noble activities, but that is not the real issue. The filter must always be, does this activity fulfill one of the purposes for which God established this church? When a church forgets its purpose, it has a difficult time deciding what's important. An indecisive church is an unstable church. Almost anything can get it off course. It will vacillate between priorities, purposes, and programs. Once your church's purposes have been clarified, any goal that fulfills one of these purposes gets automatic approval. So what he's saying is that if we define our purpose and we understand our purpose clearly, then it becomes very easy to differentiate between ideas that help us to fulfill that purpose and other ideas that, although may be good ideas, they may be meaningful, they may be charitable ideas, but if they don't necessarily help us to achieve this main purpose for which our church exists in the first place, or you could apply this to anything in your own personal life, in a business, corporation, or whatever, then it has its time and its place, but perhaps that's a good idea for somebody else to do, or for some other organization to do, or something like that. And at the same time, if you don't have a clear purpose, then it's really hard to make those decisions. And it can be easy to end up doing a little bit of everything and accomplishing nothing in the end, or very little. The next section is a clear purpose allows concentration. So he uses the analogy that if you focus light, so light is if you focus light, then you can create, amazing energy. A focused light, if you focus it far enough, it can be a laser. You can cut steel, you can do amazing things with it, or at the very least, even sunlight under a magnifying glass can set a leaf on fire or kill a bug or something like that. But if the light is diffused, if it's not focused, then it's still light, but you can't really do so much with it. He's saying that a clear purpose is similar. If you're very clear on your purpose, you can focus on what you're doing, then you can accomplish a lot. But if you're not clear and your purpose is kind of vague, then it will be hard to accomplish things. He says, in my opinion, most churches try to do too much. This is one of the most overlooked barriers to building a healthy church. We wear out people. Too often, small churches involve themselves in all kinds of activities, events, and programs. They dabble in 40 different things and miss being good at any of them. He talks about programs and how, sometimes we try to keep programs and we add new programs, but he says, realistically, no program is meant to last forever. We're constantly having to look, what's effective and what's not effective, and sometimes clean house if we need to. He says when they started Saddleback Church, all they offered for the first year was a worship service and a limited children's church program. They didn't attempt to be a full-service church. For instance, they didn't have a youth program until they were averaging over 500 in attendance. And they didn't have a singles program until attendance had grown to nearly 1,000. He says, we determined that we would never begin a new ministry without first having someone to lead it. If no leader emerged, we would wait on God's timing before beginning a ministry. When the right leader would finally appear on the scene, we would initiate the new ministry. And I think that that's really a great point, because sometimes we get in our idea of something that we feel is really important to do, and we feel like, well, the ends justify the means, and we just need to do it, regardless if we have the people or the leadership or whatever. But I think that what he's saying here is that we also have to recognize that, if we're really living according to God's will, then God knows what's needed to be successful, and is preparing a person, or will prepare a person to take leadership when the time is right, maybe when we're ready. And he's saying that, for them, they don't even try to start a new ministry unless they have the right person. And I think that's really smart. He ends the section by just saying that, God, in the end, the point of being a church, or the point of being anything, even whether you're living your own personal life, or you're running a business, or you're going to school, or whatever you're doing in your life, raising a family, is not to be, to be doing things, but to be effective, to be accomplishing that purpose for which you've set out to accomplish. And the church is no different. The church is meant to be effective. And he says that those few churches that are really effective, they focus on their purpose. And by constantly reviewing their purpose, they keep their priorities straight and their church focused. So I think that's a really great lesson. It's food for thought. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.